Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of WNBL iTV. Well, last week I said curiouser and curiouser was the way that we should be describing this WNBL season. And as I welcome again Laurie Chiswick. Laurie, the finals picture is just a slight bit clearer, I think, this week.
Very slight, Darren, very slight. And as much as I ripped up my paper last week, I couldn't resist, and I went back to having a look at everything.
It's so hard not to do, but I think we just about are guaranteed. I think we are guaranteed now, barring a disaster. In fact, yeah, barring a disaster, that Adelaide and Bulleen are going to finish in top two, and that Adelaide will almost certainly finish on top. There would have to be some crazy stuff happening.
Yeah, I agree. I think we can safely say Adelaide 1, Bulleen 2.
And I think with Logan dropping those two games this weekend, which we'll talk about in detail in a moment, at Canberra and also to Bulleen, I think it's going to be almost impossible. It will require a huge turnaround for them to make the finals.
Well, certainly they still could mathematically, no problem, but form-wise, I agree, Darren. I think they've shot themselves in the foot and probably, you know, it's a real uphill battle for them. Yeah,
sadly for Logan, they probably missed a golden opportunity. But more about that in a moment. Let's start with the game on Friday night and talk about missing golden opportunities. What about the Sydney Uni Flames? 16 points up in the third quarter, and the Dandenong Rangers, on the back of Jenna O'Hea and Kathleen McLeod, surprise, surprise, come back and win.
What a high-quality game, Darren, right? You know, it was a shootout, it was a high-scoring game, but really good percentages from both teams, really low turnover counts for both teams, and good assists, lots of team effort, and you know, it was it was like a finals game.
There's no doubt, and it started that way. You know, well, the start of it was right there. The tempo was right there, and I actually mentioned this during the call that the last couple of weeks when the pressure's been on and there's been these finals type games, teams have been making errors. But neither of these two teams did that. They were just switched on right there, and their class really shone.
Well, I'd be curious to know, Darren, given that we sort of saw a shortened version of that game and you were there, did Sydney actually crumble, or was Dandenong just in such good form that they just took over the game?
I think it was a little from column A and a little from column B. I know that Dandenong's defence really cranked up. They conceded 53 points in the first half and only 29 in the second half to a team that had Belinda Snell on fire. We know how good offensively Amy Denson is. Lauren King was involved, and they were shooting the lights out in the first half, as you mentioned. So Dandenong's defence really cranked up. But and I know that Sydney were disappointed with their defensive efforts in the second half, but I think a lot of the credit has to go to Dandenong. I mentioned that it was Jenna and Kathleen that provided the impetus. Kathleen almost had a triple-double, and in the third quarter, when Jenna was under pressure, she had 3 or 4 fouls at that point, but she just showed what a champion she is, put the team on her back and led them, and then that brought others into the game, like Krista Phillips was a star, and then they got, you know, their role players, who you well know as far, you know, coming off the bench, Cunningham and these sort of players. Alison Downey was good again. So I think credit Dandenong.
Well, certainly they looked like they had that intensity. They crashed the boards. They got, you know, a lot more second chance opportunities, which shows a team that's really desperate to win. Not saying that Sydney weren't, because they were in the same position. They really needed that win. But credit to both teams, really high-quality game. Yeah,
it was a wonderful game. But afterwards, I can tell you one person who was incredibly happy was Jenna O'Hea, and she spoke to Rachel Spawn.
Jenna, that was just an inspirational win in the end.
It was. We needed that win so bad to stay in the hunt for finals, and you know, we were down by a lot at half-time. We just knew we had to chip away at it, and I'm just so proud of all the girls with how they fought to, you know, get that deficit and get that win.
You kept Sydney to 29 points in the second half. Great defensive effort.
Wow, we were pretty terrible in the first half. You know, they were on a 110-point game or something. We knew that was a big focus for us in the second half, and you know, we really knuckled down and we rotated to shooters, and we got some really good steals and boxed out well, and then we were able to push, and we're always best when we're in transition, so it was really good.
Well, Jenna, congratulations. I think the finals are coming. Well done.
Thank you.
Well, I know a couple of people want to know, Laurie, whether Jenna O'Hay's gone to the same media school as Libby Trickett. She's always so excited after the...
and so genuine in that excitement.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And so different to how she is at the start of the game, where it's all game face and all that sort of stuff. But it was a wonderful win to Dandenong. She should have been excited. Unfortunately, nobody at the Logan Thunder was excited on Friday night after their loss to Canberra. Just 22 points in the first half, Laurie. It's just not good enough against a team that Logan had beaten... Well, comfortably is perhaps a strong word, but relatively comfortably in their previous two matchups.
Darren, it was the exact type of game that Canberra would have wanted.
Yep.
Low scoring, grind it out, and that's not Logan's style. They like a much more free-flowing game, get up and down, lots of transition baskets. So it played exactly into Canberra's hands.
I know that Cara Graff was excited. She felt that their team showed some pride and it was a determined performance. She said it was their best performance of the year. Up in Townsville, well, Townsville were hit by an injury worry of their own. Ali Manu missed that match with a stress fracture and she may miss another couple of weeks. We're not sure what's going on with Ali's fitness. There's no doubt that hampered Townsville in their match against Bulleen. But I know Catherine's got an injury update coming up at a bit, Laurie, but how about Bulleen? Timsy almost had to make a comeback, but they still got the win.
Well, they did, and you know, it started for them right in the warm-up. Taylor Roberts actually rolled her ankle in the warm-up and had to get retaped, but you know, Bulleen came out really strong. I spoke to Tom Marr, and he was thrilled with the performances of his three big players, Liz, Rachel, and... Alice Kunick.
Yes.
He said from the week before against Bendigo, they were very disappointing. He said they played to their potential. They did what they were expected to do and had a fantastic game. Yeah,
they were absolutely thrilled with the win. There's no doubt about that, and they deserve their momentum. And a bit more about them in a moment when we talk about the Logan game. But what about over at Alice Springs? The AIS upset the West Coast Waves. Sarah Blickhaves was really impressive once again. She's having a great season.
Well, I was really pleased for the Institute to come away from that win because they've actually, what we've talked about, they haven't, their scores have been relatively good, not too many blowouts, and certainly to get that win at this time of the season is wonderful. Yeah, they've been super competitive, there's no doubt, and West Coast will be really disappointed, you feel, with that loss. In Bendigo on Saturday night, Laurie, it was another overtime game. It was a thriller, and Adelaide, clinical is how I'd describe their performance in overtime. And the fact that Susie Bakovic, after the game, we spoke to her on WNBL radio, said, "How do you feel, Susie?" Her first comment was, "We were disappointed with that." But you've just won an overtime game against possibly the third or fourth best team of the competition. Her first reaction is, "We're disappointed." Now, I'm not being critical of you, Susie, if you're watching, but I'm just saying it just shows the standards, I think, that the best teams set to you know, and they try and meet them every game. Certainly Adelaide, in my mind, have raised the bar to everybody going into this finals. And similar to the Sydney-Dandenong game, it was a high-quality game, Darren. Great shooting percentages. Everybody was involved. The big guns stepped out. And for Adelaide, again, they were without Jennifer Screen in that game, and yet they were still able to come away with a win under a lot of pressure. It was an unbelievable game. Bendigo looked like they had it won a couple of times. Christy Harrower, with 12 seconds to go, Laurie, you'll like this. She actually, Bendigo had the ball with 12 seconds to go. Scores were level. Bendigo, the coaches and the assistant coaches were having their little meeting before they went into the timeout. Christy came over, took the clipboard and went into the timeout and drew up her own play. She had got herself an open shot and it just rimmed out, and obviously in overtime they weren't good enough against Adelaide. Yeah, Adelaide were really strong, you know, 10 points, 10 or 15 to 5 in that overtime period, and it just shows the class that certainly Adelaide are right now. They are the team to beat, I think there's little doubt about that. But the Bulleen Boomers, they showed some character of their own. We mentioned the injury dramas they had on Saturday, on Friday night in Townsville. Then to be able to go down to Logan against a team that was smarting from a previous loss, still had their finals hopes alive, to come out and beat them with Chantella Pereira, Rachel Jarry playing 40 minutes. I love Tom Marr's comments after the game. He didn't think Chantella Pereira had ever played 40 minutes at point guard, probably combined across her whole career, Laurie. Well, Darren, given that Sam Richards went down with that calf, and then Amelia Todd-Hunter with the knee, so no point guards whatsoever. You know, you look, Chantella's a 2, then we've got Loz Pierce, who's only played a handful of minutes this season. She ended up playing 26 minutes that game. Alice Kunick, who's a 4-5, and the rest are all bigs. And they played a team, fortunately for them in Logan, that aren't a true pressing team. And so, you know, congratulations to Boleyn. Chantella Pereira running that point for that whole time.
Yeah, wonderful effort. We've got to credit Liz Cambage. We've spoken about her all year. Her efforts on the weekend, 22 and 19 up in Townsville and 34 and 13 at Logan. Just leading that team was sensational. Stepping
up when she needed to, and that's what a true champion does. Last year's MVP, and she certainly brought that form into the weekend. Let's get into the ladder now, Laura. The Adelaide Lightning still up on top. They are 2 games clear, and know it's a bit confusing when your teams have played different matches, but Adelaide and Bulleen do battle this week. We'll have a preview of that in a moment. Townsville has 1 game left only. That's against Canberra. Dandenong have a couple of games left, Bendigo and Sydney as well. Bendigo and Sydney play each other this week. But Logan, with their 3 games, the reason I say it's going to be hard for them, Laurie, they've got the AIS this week, they should win. And then in the last round, they've got Bendigo and Bulleen, both in Melbourne. And that's Victoria. That's why it's hard to see them being able to creep up the ladder. And remember, it then becomes head-to-head. So it's not a matter of just getting into the 5, it's having those splits there. And that's absolutely going to become evident in this last little while, because certainly I think 13 and 9, there's going to be various teams on 13 and 9 that will come down to head-to-head splits. All right, time to get the update on all the injury news and everything else going on around the WNBL. Let's go to Catherine Murphy.
Thank you, Darren and Laurie. Well, we start with an injury update from Boleyn, and Sam Richards is out for 3 weeks with a calf tear. She sustained the injury in the 4th quarter against Townsville and underwent scans on Monday. In further bad news for the club, her replacement, Amelia Todhunter, also looks doubtful for the weekend after she picked up a knee injury. Next to the Player of the Week award, and this week there are joint winners with Kathleen McLeod and Sarah Blickabs sharing the spoils. McLeod led Dandenong to victory over Sydney Uni, coming 1 assist short of the season's first triple-double. She finished with 16 points, 12 rebounds and 9 assists. Blickabs was instrumental in the AIS's 2nd win of the season, beating West Coast in Alice Springs on Saturday. She finished with 20 points, connecting on 9 of her 11 field goal attempts. She also had 10 rebounds, 5 steals and 2 assists. Finally, Canberra captain Jess Bibby celebrates a very special milestone this week. She plays her 300th WNBL game against the AIS. Well, Darren, what a fantastic career it's been so far.
Well, Catherine is absolutely right, Laurie. What a career for Jess Bibby. She will become just the 10th player to reach that milestone, alongside names like Rachel Spawn and Lucille Bailey, Karen Dalton, Robin Marr, etc., etc. 5 championships, played overseas, done everything. Well, and considering you throw in there, she had a back injury for a couple of years that took her right out of the game completely. So it's an absolute honourable moment for her to be in that elite company with that group, and good on Jess. Yeah, fantastic career. And now the captain of the Canberra Capitals, and was in their last championship success as well. Perhaps the best pure shooter you've seen in the competition, or one of the best? Well, certainly can light it up, and it's just so exciting when she comes off. Well, now she's coming off the bench, but even before, she does. She has a great shot and a great technique. Well, that's the highlight of Wednesday night's game with the AIS playing Canberra. Hopefully the Capitals fans and any basketball fans really in the ACT can get down to that one. What about on Friday night, Laurie? Our ABC TV game of the week, Adelaide and Bulleen. Tell us about it. It's going to be a ripper. Well, Darren, unfortunately, I would have said that a week ago, so pumped for that game. Now with Bulleen really just sort of scraping to get a team together almost, I'm not sure of the quality. But having said that, it'll be a great challenge for Bulleen to see how they can go up against the Adelaide team, because who knows how many of those players are going to be actually back for playoffs. Yeah, and I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? That they need to get some structures around, and we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago when Adelaide were faced with their big injury crisis with Susie Bakovic, and you were very strong that one player doesn't mean, if you lose one player and maybe even 2, you still can't totally reshape everything that you've been doing all year. So it would be an interesting challenge for Tom Marr.
However, they've lost 4.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So
that's a lot.
That's a lot. But you know, I still think it'll be I still think it'll be a high quality game. We've got Liz up against Susie, the top 2 scorers in the competition, shot blockers, rebounders. And I think the last time they played, Susie actually owned Liz, and so I'm sure Liz will want to make amends to that, and she had a great weekend, as you mentioned.
Yeah, that's right. So they won all this season, and it'll be great, I think, as well, just for our ABC viewers to see Adelaide, because we haven't seen them on TV since round 2, and I think they're getting a little bit, they want the camera, they want the limelight.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, Dandenong on West Coast on Friday night in Melbourne. The Waves will be desperate for a big performance, Laurie, because obviously they'll be disappointed with losing that match to the AAS, but Dandenong have so much to play for.
Oh, they've got a sniff of finals now. Not only, you know, just making in it, they want to try and go as far up the ladder as they can, and so I think they found some form. Their challenge now will make sure that they're consistent and they don't drop down. But given that Jenna had a great game, Kathleen seems to be shooting the ball right now. Krista Phillips, I thought, did well to stay in the game against Sydney. So I think that they should win that game comfortably. 3
games on Saturday night in the WNBL. The Logan Thunder are hosting the AIS in a match that they just have no choice but to win it if they want to have any chance in that last round of making the finals. But some of the real action, Laurie, is Bendigo and Sydney. Last week, the Flames played the Dandenong Rangers. They lost. This week, I reckon if they lose this one to Bendigo, they are almost gone.
Oh, I agree, Darren. I was looking over the numbers, and I think, to me, this is an elimination final. Yep. And for Bendigo, it's the fact that, to me, if they lose this, they're out. Even if they beat Logan, because then Sydney would go in ahead of them because they'd get the split. However, if they win it, they could climb as far as 3rd spot because of head-to-head with Townsville and Dandenong. They've got those splits.
You know, I'm convinced, and I said, you and I at the start of the year said that we thought that Bendigo might win the championship.
Yeah.
I still think they can.
Yeah.
Having seen them, I know that Adelaide's good, and please don't think, Peter Buckle and everyone, that I'm disrespecting your team. But Bendigo was so close to defeating Adelaide, and again, I know they were a bit undermanned, but they were so close to beating Adelaide. I think that they can still win it, or at least give it a real big shake. If they get in, they still might miss out. It's unbelievable.
That's how close it is. But I really expect this game, again, to be a high quality game and a high scoring game. Look at the shooters on both teams. Belinda Snell, Alicia Poto, Denson. Then we've got Harrower, Smith, Tess Madgen. So, yeah, I expect lots of action in that game.
Yeah, Bendigo fans, get out and support your team in that one. The Spirit and the Flames, a mini elimination final on Saturday night. And the last game for the round 17, the penultimate round of the regular season, sees the Bull and Boomers hosting the West Coast Waves. Laurie, a danger game again?
Absolutely, real dangerous for Bulleen. Both of them have a game the night before, but Bulleen actually have to travel back from Adelaide to play this. And because they are so undermanned, that could be a chance for West Coast. But, you know, I hope that they get the job done and they can finish that round off strongly, Bulleen.
All right, I hope that when we meet again in a week's time, the picture's just a little bit clearer. Part of me hopes it is, and part of me hopes we've still got a couple of live games, because it just creates so much interest.
I think there still will be live games that last week, maybe in terms of the splits and where they'll end up. But how great coming down to the second last weekend, and we still don't know who's in the 5.
Wonderful, Laurie. Make sure you stay in touch with us on Twitter and Facebook. Get on there, follow the WNBL, and we look forward to your company again next week.